Welcome to this week's episode of A Facilitator's Journey. Today I am joined by Romy Alexandra, a facilitator who has literally travelled all over the world with this amazing job that many of us have and do. Our conversation leads us from the start of Romy's career, where she started working in the Peacecorp in Moldova, and then Romania, and then how she became an accidental entrepreneur during the COVID lockdown of 2020. So this is your invitation. Get a cup of tea, pull up a seat, join me on the pink chair, and enjoy this episode. Hi, Romy. Welcome to A Facilitator's Journey. Thank you for being with us today. And the way I always start with a podcast is, how do we know each other?
Well, in this case, I know that we've been floating around similar facilitation communities, and I can thank the power of social media because we've just kind of been connecting there. And I saw you were looking forward to chatting more with facilitators and about their work and their business. And I was like, yeah, let's do it. Let's connect even more on this podcast. So thanks for having me here.
My pleasure. And I was really delighted when you put your metaphorical hand up in the internet sphere, because I follow you on Instagram and you're always traveling to very interesting places. And I'm always like, wow, she does cool work. So can you share for our listeners and viewers, how do you describe what you do and maybe a little bit about the work that you do?
Yeah, I have to laugh because this is literally the most asked question ever. And I always tell my husband, I dread this question. Like, what do you do? But it's not you. I need to get better at it. So here's what I've come up with for now is I like to say I'm a learning experience designer and a facilitator on a mission to humanize learning spaces. And so for me, everything that I do is really rooted in experiential learning, whether it's designing or facilitating, but making sure they're really transformational learning experiences online, in person, and hybrid.
Love. And do you have a particular sector that you find yourself drawn to or that you like to play in?
Well, actually, that's kind of the beauty, I think, about what we do is that everybody needs to learn. It's a requirement and a basic human need. And so I found that while I really started my career in the nonprofit space and then the education space, I've now worked across every sector, from corporate to government to UN agencies, you name it. I feel like I've worked in that sector. And so I'm constantly excited by where this work takes me, and it's really hard to settle down in one specific sector.
I love that. And help people understand, do you have your own clients? Are you an associate? What model do you work with?
Well, I think it's something very similar to you. I remember I saw an event that you did, and I do have my own business. So I am registered as a freelancer, and I have my own training and consulting company based in Germany right now. But I also am very fortunate to collaborate with a lot of different facilitation agencies and other institutions and organizations. So it's kind of a blended hybrid combo, let's say.
Nice. We'll come more to that in a moment. And it's interesting. So you've touched on a topic already about the international element of your world. So you just said there you've got a business registered in Germany, you're American, and you live in Spain.
Yes. At the moment, I'm
at the
in
moment.
Spain.
Exactly. I love this. So this podcast is always about how we run our businesses, what we do. So I'd love to take you back to the beginning of time for you. Where did you start your journey as a facilitator?
Yeah, so I always say like I've been falling into this work regularly. I could have imagined when I was younger that I'd be in the education space. I never thought of myself as a teacher, let's say. But I can really appreciate when I there's a program in the United States. It's called the Peacecorp. It's a government volunteer program. And I spent 2.5 years living in the Republic of Moldova, working with different nonprofit organizations. Yeah, it was an amazing experience, and it changed my life for many reasons. First and foremost, because it's where I first learned about experiential learning. Essentially, what happened was I was volunteering and working with a lot of human rights organizations, particularly with topics like human trafficking prevention. And what I was seeing was organizations were going into schools and giving lectures about life-saving information, right? What are methods that traffickers use, how you can protect yourself, what are hotline numbers. And it was so boring, and it was lecture style. So it was going in one ear and out another. And I realized this is essential information for for youth, for educate, for adults, for community leaders, for everyone to understand and know so that they could protect themselves and prevent trafficking. We need to make it effective. It needs to stick with people. So that really got me interested in how do you make learning most effective? And that led me to experiential learning. And I always said that even if they were really serious topics, like I went on to then later work in India and worked on topics like child marriage prevention and gender-based violence, all of these topics, no matter how serious, people need to be enjoying the learning experience and having fun so that the learning sticks. And so that's really what brought me to the work that I'm doing today.
So you were in Moldova. Where did you go next? What happened next?
So what's kind of a really funny coincidence is that, so I'm American. I was born and raised in New York City. But I come from my mother's actually South African, and my dad is first generation American. His parents came to the US from Poland and Romania. So by some total fluke, I ended up in the Republic of Moldova, which historians told me is most likely the region of where my grandfather actually came from. So I actually ended up learning the language of my grandfather, who I had never met. Actually, he passed away long before I was born. So it was a really amazing way to just like reconnect in a way with my own roots. So I learned Romanian. I was actually, when I was in Moldova, I was doing trainings in Romanian.
What? Stop! Stop! How did you get to that level of proficiency? That's incredible.
I can really, I have to say, and I can really thank the Peacecorp for their language instruction, because my entire life, I think I studied 6 years of French in high school in New York. And I don't know how many, and I always said, I'm just bad at languages. I'm terrible at languages. It's never going to happen. Lots of self-limiting beliefs there. Yeah. But then what I realized, the unique way that I was taught to learn Romanian had nothing to do with grammar or writing. It was all about speaking and repetition. And it was like, I arrived in Moldova. I had a 3-month intensive language course that was just every day, 3 months. I lived with a host family who didn't speak any English. I had classes every day to really just keep speaking and learning, because you are here to speak to people. We don't care about your grammar. It's not about writing. Even sometimes like a year later, I would see a word that I was using all the time. It's like, oh, that's how you spell that word. Because the whole purpose of language is it needs to connect people that they can communicate and understand each other. And so for me, that was the most helpful way of learning. And it completely changed my whole entire perspective about languages. And then I did the same in Spain later on. Okay. So sorry. So you asked me, where did I go? So here's kind of what happened. So I learned Romanian, and a lot of learning by failing forward and, getting help and support. And then I said, okay, well, where else can I use this language? So I then went to Romania. I actually won a Fulbright scholarship to work with anti-trafficking organizations focused on experiential learning methods, and how do we use experiential learning as a way to really create innovative approaches to trafficking prevention, and kept going with that. And then after that year, I went to Spain briefly. I went to Galicia for a little bit, but I was trying to figure out where am I going to go next? I found an organization in India. So I went to a particular part called Bihar, which is in the very northeast, that I had to fight to get a visa because they said, you're a white American woman. You should not be going to Bihar. There are unfortunately far too many stereotypes about Bihar because it is one of the poorest or it is the poorest region of India. But I, of course, like all of my learning experiences have taught me, don't believe the stereotypes.
Yeah.
And the people were so warm, so kind, so welcoming. I had an incredible experience there working. I didn't learn Hindi, I have to say. Like I'm definitely not fluent, but tried to get a couple words in when I was there. And then I did a short stint back in the United States after many years of living abroad. Due to many interesting, unique turn of events at the moment that I moved and elections and interesting perspective, I finally moved back to Galicia, Spain, where I really started working with Erasmus Plus, and that's kind of how I started my career into becoming full-time into training. Yeah.
Wow. I think it's incredible the number of countries that you have worked in. That can we just unglamorize it for people though? So a lot of people go, oh my God. So I've done a lot of travel in my time and I'm very, very lucky. I'm blessed. And everyone goes, oh my God, it's amazing. You're off to America. You're going to go to Africa. You're going to go to Singapore. And yeah, it is great. Should we just be really clear with people? It's not glamorous. Like a lot of the time, like you go airport to hotel, for me anyway, hotel to an office or a hotel training room. You just go around in a circle back to your room, eat at the local restaurant and then back to the airport. Like it's very rare if you're doing like week trips that you see anything more than hotels and airports and taxis.
I try, so travel is something really important to me. Freedom is my top value. And I learned that a big part of that is kind of why and how I started even in the, it's interesting because I ended up starting my training career in migration work, but I realized freedom is so important and understanding the privilege that I have to travel. So my life dream is to visit every country in the world. So I'm right now at like 81, I think I have. Yeah. But I still haven't even made half. So all putting in perspective, it's crazy.
I'd say it's quite a few more than many of the people listening, myself included. I don't know. How many countries are there in the world?
Depends on who you ask what is considered a country or not, but there's somewhere between 194 and 196.
Okay, what's two between friends?
Or maybe it's 197. It's somewhere in that realm. Yeah.
I still think 80 countries is pretty impressive.
But I want to go back to what you said about let's not glamorize it, right? Because I do know that for me, I get so much energy out of that. So I really make it a mission for myself that anywhere I go, even if it's just one day, I have to extend my stay. So I have one day to really meet the people, learn the culture, eat the food, go out in the streets. Like that's really what's important to me. So I get like all the transportation, all that stuff. For me, I think what's the less glamorous side of traveling is what my home life looks like when I'm traveling all the time. Because I think last year, for example, after everyone came back from COVID, I felt like I traveled way more than I ever had before. I mean, it was like almost, I think I was spending 3 weeks out of every month in a different, outside of my house. Yeah, it was just really crazy. It was back-to-back trainings. And so the result of that was I pretty much lived out of a suitcase, right? I didn't have, I would come home just enough time to do the laundry. Okay, pack the same stuff. Here we go again, and let's say that I'm not the kind of traveler that plans everything super in advance and has everything ready. I'm very much more in my similar emergent facilitation style. It's kind of more emergent traveling style. And I still have friends who say, you travel more than anyone I know. How do you still not have all your ducks in a row? So I think for me, it's about the unglamorous side is all the paperwork, all the visa things, all the annoying bureaucracy, all the logistic things that go on with your day-to-day life when you start to travel. And for me, that's why actually this year I said I want to travel less and I want to do more online work, just to have that balance.
And it is so, there's a couple of things there. So one, I think you just said something really important, is like, when we're freelance, we can actually choose how we construct our week, our month, our quarter, our year. So it is a choice to travel. It genuinely. So we can, and it's great to hear someone, you know, we can say no, or we can say yes, and I'd like to do it like this. Because I think it's really important for people to recognize that, you know, they have the power. And if you're working as an associate, sometimes people feel like they've got to say yes to everything. So the associate model in the UK, you know, working with another agency, you know, and they saying to you, can you do this piece of work? And secondly, even if you've got your own direct clients and they're giving you dates and you're looking at it, either there's a clash or, you know, it means you're working back to back. Sometimes I think if it's far enough in advance, you can have a conversation that says, actually, can we have it in this week for these reasons? And I found a lot of clients are okay with that. But I think there's a belief that we can't say that to clients. Like, oh, no, they've given me the date, we have to stay with it. It's not true. I don't know whether you found something similar.
Totally. I think I've learned a lot about myself that, you know, I grew up in New York City. I always felt like, okay, I say it to you straight, here I am. But the more that I've actually gone into this, you know, to be my own entrepreneur and have my own business, I realized I'm actually much more of a people pleaser than I realized.
Yeah.
And especially when it comes to clients, right? So usually my instinct when clients say those things, like, we need to have it these days, a bit, okay, yes, it's not consistent, but I'm actually learning to, the best thing I can do for myself and my relationship with my client is to push back and set my boundaries. And especially when it comes to things like travel, it's exhausting. I've learned I need to be really careful about planning my time. It's not like, oh, I come back today, so tomorrow I'm going to be ready to do another training.
Oh my God.
Yeah. You know, right?
Well, I'm laughing actually, Romy, because this episode was recorded in July, and I have just done 3 days back to back in Utrecht, and I got back late last night. And this is my own construct, but I always have the SOF pod on the first Friday of every month. So we've had that at 9 o'clock. You and I are talking at 12 o'clock, and I'm doing another podcast at 2 o'clock, and I'm having my hair cut at 4 o'clock. And it's only when I looked at my diary, I went, no, you did that, Kirsty. You did that. Like, it's not like anyone else. So it's recognizing that when we do any work, whether you're doing it in your own country and just traveling home, you need decompression time. You need time to be able to, I don't know, even just, I haven't been outside properly all week, so I'm really feeling that. So it's things like get outside, move, catch up on your paperwork, but even catch up on home life. So to your point, I was laughing again to myself because when I did a lot more travel than I am now, I didn't have a home life. So, you know, did a lot of it just through the internet, and just a lot of friendships were maintained through phone calls or text messages.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I relate to everything you just said, right? So I'm learning that the longer a training is, the longer I'm away, the longer I need to make sure I'm scheduling time for recuperation. And because otherwise it's just like, we give so much of ourselves, so much energy, so much time, so much, that when I come back, I'm usually, okay, I've been taking care of the whole group. I come back and my husband's usually like, okay, he's the one taking care of me, and get back, like, he cooks me food and brings me tea. Like, I'm very lucky, because honestly, I'm learning that I'm not great at taking care of myself. And I'm really trying to get better at that. Wonderful. Because it's so important.
Yeah.
Right? We give so much. So the more we can I've started even putting it in my calendar.
You have to block it.
Yeah, I have to block it. Otherwise, I'll say, oh, yeah, I'm free.
I can do that. Well, that's what I've done today. So actually, while we're talking about this, so I think it's really important, like the self-care especially after doing a lot of delivery, even when you've been doing lots of design and you're just sat at your desk and you're getting creative, like in the mental state. Okay, what is your go-to self-care thing now? What do you do?
Well, definitely, I'd say just like taking walks in nature. Even when I'm home in Germany, there's a nice little path to this little woody forest, and I like to just walk by. And even now here in Galicia, there's like gorgeous nature and a lot more beaches, which is great. But for me, it's about music. Oh yeah. Do you need me to stop?
Pause. I've just decided to chuck the microphone everywhere. I'm still realizing my visual's really out of whack as well.
Yeah, I didn't know if it was just the reloading thing.
Yeah, hold on. I'm gonna do something. Sorry, Cam. I've never really done this before. Let me. This is the way to do it. Is that better?
You look the same to me, to be honest.
Is it fuzzy? It's very annoying.
It's a little fuzzy. Sometimes it happens also for me, like the overhead light, but I think it's not just about that. Nope, that's a little better. Now I saw you better there.
That looks fuzzy on my camera. Oh well. Let's start back with the question. What's our self-care?
Self-care.
I'll ask the question. I'm going to put a pause in. Okay, let's go to that then. So, what do we do to look after ourselves after we've done lots of delivery or design?
Yeah, this is such a great question because I like to encourage my own participants to make their own self-care recipes, because I think everyone's going to have different ingredients, and every day you might need different ingredients to create a new recipe. So some of the ingredients in my recipe are definitely walks in nature. Definitely, I love music. So putting on my headphones, jamming out to music, being out in nature. Also, I'm a huge foodie, so really making sure that I give myself time to go out to a really nice meal with good friends or with my husband, have a nice glass of wine. If I'm lucky, once in a while, if there's a hotel, I'll take a good long bubble bath.
I hear you.
All those things, combined, I think for me, the thread is just about giving myself more spaciousness, because I'm so passionate about what I do, and I really believe that I've found my purpose in life. And I once saw a meme that said, it was something like, love what you do and you never work a day in your life. And then it crossed that. Yeah, we've heard that one. And then it like crossed it out and said, love what you do and never take a day off. Take everything super personally. Make sure that you give too much of yourself into your work until you burn out, like all those things.
Oh my God. Yes.
So I think for me, what's really essential for the self-care is just giving myself time and space to not think about work, because it can be something that's always on my mind or always an idea. And it's just, how can I focus on me? How can I focus on my surroundings? And that really helps.
I've noticed. So at one of the pods last year, we were talking about rest, and there's 7 different types of rest.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty good. I'm better with active rest. So I'm doing something, but it's nothing to do with the business. So like last week, I stayed with my best friend mate and we went paddleboarding for an afternoon, and that's enough just to distract me, but I'm still doing something. So people might go, but that's not resting. But my brain is like, I'm away from like sitting at a computer screen and and doing that thinking. My other go-tos for me are yoga. When I do that, any form of exercise outside, like running, cycling, swimming, massage. That really helps. A good massage, that or body work of some description, because it just shifts. But yeah, I've been having a little word with myself because I've broken all my rules this week in that I haven't been outside. I haven't been in nature, even though I was doing a train the trainer. And yeah, even this morning it was pouring with rain here in the UK, and I was just like, I just can't be bothered. And I'm so super tired. And I know if I'd gone outside, it would have helped me shift the stagnant energy. So yeah.
Yes,
But
so
yeah,
true.
I think it's important. Now, we've mentioned quite a bit, like you've lived in Germany, you live in Galicia, America, you've visited over 80 different countries. And we were saying as well, like how you started, you were with the Peacecorp and then Erasmus Plus. How did you get to where you are now, would you say? Like, what were some of the turning points for you in your journey?
I'm definitely an accidental entrepreneur. So I never had planned or imagined I would start my own business. In fact, because so much of the work that I was doing was with nonprofits. I think for a long time I had a lot of, like a very weird, it's so funny when you come from the nonprofit space, making that transition to even charging more for what you do and like really making it into a business. It felt so foreign and felt, I had to also address my own feelings about finances and these things. But I kind of fell into it because what happened was I moved to Germany the week of lockdown in 2020, March 2020. So I basically knew that we were moving for my husband's work. I have to laugh because I've now said his name so many times in this podcast, and it's good because
you have to get him to listen.
Yeah, I do have other friends and other people in my life, but anyway. But yeah, we moved for his work to Germany, and I thought I was going to continue working with Erasmus Plus organizations. So I remember setting up interviews and kind of mood. I was doing a lot of trainings at the beginning of the year, and I arrived and said, okay, now I'm officially moving to Germany. What's happening? And instantly was lockdown. Everyone said all the interviews are canceled. Don't even think about coming. And I realized, oh my gosh, I just moved to a new country. I don't know anyone. I don't speak the language. I have no job prospects, and I have no idea what I'm going to do. So,
oh my God. Okay. So many of us listening to this, and myself included, I mean, we all went through that moment of, oh God, shit, like our in-person, majority of our work was in person. That's all stopped. What are my customers going to say? What are my clients going to say? You had the additional piece of, I've moved to a new country. I don't know anyone. I don't speak the language. And my work, in all honesty, was always in person. So, wow, that feels like a really big, like all the boxes were crossed, not ticked. They were crossed.
Yes, exactly. And I was truly the ultimate naysayer about anything online. Like in the past, people had said, can you give us an online something? And I said, no, because everything I do is about experiential learning, and you cannot do experiential learning online. Like I was, again, convinced.
Okay.
So this is really for me where everything shifted. Was I basically told myself, right now, everything's happening online. I have nothing else going on but to figure out, how do I take a learning mindset and make it work? I spent months just going to everything I could. I went all different time zones, staying up at crazy hours just to learn what I could. And again, it's really thanks to social media. What happened was I said, okay, as I'm learning these different methods and techniques of how to bring experiential learning online, I'm sure other people were all in the similar situation. I opened an Instagram account, my Facebook account. I started using LinkedIn, and basically just said, I'm going to share with you what I'm learning and see, and just wanted to, and this is, if there's anything that I've learned in terms of business, it's that the more that we take this, what I'm trying to find even the word, all the languages in my head. This is the downside. Also, what happens when you have to speak too many languages. But really this more selfish approach to, I need to keep it because there's a scarcity mindset there of, I'm scared if I share this, somebody else will take it. I think if there's anything I've learned, that the majority of all the work and anything that's come my way for my success has been because I've been trying to be so generous in sharing with other people what I'm learning. And ultimately that's what happened. Was I was sharing things on social media. People realized and saw what I was posting on LinkedIn. I had different organizations coming to me and asking me, could you now give us a workshop on what you're learning and teach us in online training? I had also done a lot of, after the human rights piece, I did a lot of emotional intelligence training, because I knew that leaders, emotional intelligence is one of the main skills. So I kind of found myself actually in a very fortunate situation where two of my main areas of specialty at the time were experiential learning and emotional intelligence. And during a time when everyone was talking finally about mental health. And that's really what just happened. It kind of took off, and it got me connected to different organizations, also different facilitation agencies who were seeing what I was posting and asked me to come in and start working with them. So that's kind of how I ended up doing what I'm doing.
Brilliant. I wanted to touch on, because you are in Spain, but you've lived in Germany. And I'm just curious about the business background bit. Where is your business registered at this time?
So I am registered in a very small little town outside of Stuttgart in Germany. And yeah, I'm considered a freelancer. I think, I don't know, you say associate, but I think it's similar.
No, I mean, associate is someone who works for another training agency.
Okay, yes. I'm also an associate, but I'm also a freelancer.
Yeah, and then freelancer, and then you have business owner. And in the UK, we have different structures that you can be as a business owner. So you can have a limited company, which means you have to file your accounts. You have to have an accountant do them for you. They have to be registered at a place called Companies House. Or you can be a sole trader, and you pay way more tax as well when you're a limited company, it feels like. Or you can be a sole trader, and that's more the freelance. You just work for yourself. Your tax structure is slightly different. So there's that. I'm just always curious, because I know what it's like from setting up a business in the UK. What was it like going to a new country, not speaking the language, trying to work out what you're going to do and register a business, like set up a business?
Really challenging. So I had no idea what to do. I was trying to do my research. I ultimately, and I think this is also kind of the approach I take for most things when in work, when I don't know what to do, is I ask for help. And I think that was just essential. Luckily, we started making a small network where we were living, and I basically just asked German colleagues, like, can you physically come with me to the Finanzamt, because nobody will speak English there. I don't speak any German. I really just, it's essential that I register. Otherwise, I have no job prospects. So thanks to, I want to give a big shout out to Wolfgang. If you're listening, Wolfgang was super, super helpful, and I really appreciate he helped me do all the paperwork, for sure.
And I think that's the really important thing, isn't it? It's like, if you are in a new country and you're wanting to set up your own entity, whether that's the freelance model, limited company, ask for help. Don't try and do this on your own. And even there'll be some people who'll be, no, I'll just go to the website, I'll work it out, I'll talk to Google Translate. I absolutely go for it, and talk to a human being, because they'll give you the other side of the situation. And I think it's great that someone was able to come with you and do the translation and help you navigate the German system, because the little bit I have worked in Germany, paperwork, hierarchy, you have to do it in the right order, in the right way. Otherwise, just the computer will say no to you, and that's it, game over.
Yep. I mean, I'd say that I finally allowed myself to just say, okay, I need help, and I need you to treat me like I'm a baby. Like, just take me there, help me, tell me what everything's up, because I had gone too many times by myself, and I would leave with either frustration or tears or something. I said, okay,
all of the above.
I need help. Yeah.
And what's your plan for being in Spain? Are you going to register there?
I'm trying to figure out what happens. I mean, right now, Galicia is a place that really has my heart. And I think what's interesting for me is that I kind of assumed that I would bop around to different countries for the rest of my life and never settle down. And this little corner of the world really took my heart, and is where I really feel is home, and is finally a place I'm like, oh, I could actually see myself one day really settling down. So Again, I'm probably going to ask somebody else for big help to see
Yeah.
what happens when I try to, in the coming years, move my business to here. But I still have no idea what that entails, and I'll figure it out on the way.
Actually, I've got another question as well, because you're American. We can hear your American accent. So how does that impact you working in Europe, or do you have a European passport?
No, I would love a European passport, but I do not have one yet. But actually, when I first realized that I wanted to stay in Europe, after the Peace Corps and after Fulbright, which were programs that had given me a visa, I realized, okay, how do I actually stay here long term? And it's really challenging for Americans to get working visas in Europe. I know someone who was one of the top rated doctors in her specific field, and there was even a hospital that required her services in Barcelona, and they could not figure out how to get a working visa. It was so complicated that she ended up taking a sabbatical year and kind of just volunteered in Barcelona. I mean, it's so crazy challenging. It's very easy for Americans to come as tourists. They love, give us a 90-day visa. Everyone's very happy, but to stay long-term is really challenging. So I had to find a lot of interesting routes along the way of how I could stay, what kind of programs there were. For example, with Spain, I did a few times. There's a program from the Ministry of Education that does like a really small part-time, they call it language and culture assistance. And this is actually what was really cool, was that I got to work part-time as an assistant English teacher. And although I said, I don't know anything about teaching English, please, again, right, don't expect me to come in and teach you grammar and all these things, because students would say, why is it like this and not like this? And I'd say, I don't know, it just sounds better. Yeah, I have no idea. So I was not a good, let's say, language teacher, but what I found was that I could use that program to really bring more experiential learning and facilitation into the classroom. And that was so I would teach more on like emotional intelligence skills and self-development skills through experiential learning in English. And that is kind of how I got into these different programs that got me to stay, until luckily I found my wonderful husband, who I've talked extensively about on this podcast.
Can we just what's his first name? I feel like
Santiago.
Santiago. Oh my God, that is so cool. So is he Spanish?
He's Galician.
Sorry.
Yes, Santiago is we're very proud Galicians in this family. But yes, eventually we ended up getting married and moving to Germany. And now I can stay here through a marriage visa.
Ah, that's good news.
Yeah, very good news for me.
Yeah, definitely. Well, it all works out at the end, doesn't it? I just think it's really interesting, though, just listening to your journey, listening to your experience. It's like there's been never once have you said, oh, it was difficult, or, I really had to fight hard. It sounds like there's just been a lot of trust the process, trust the void, like the right thing comes at the right time. That's me making up some words to go in the gap.
It's been challenging. I'm not going to lie. There have been so many challenges along the way. I think it's more about now that I'm able to look at my past and my journey of what got me here. Yeah, it sounds really easy and fluid, but no way. There were times where I was like, what the heck am I doing with my life? What am I going to do? How am I going to make this work? How am I going to build a network? I still don't even have a website. I'm like, still the idea about marketing and branding, all those things, so many unknowns, so many challenges. But I think it's just kind of like the learning mindset, right? We learn by doing, we fail forward. Every failure or mistake or step back is a great learning experience. And all those mistakes or all those struggles or challenges actually brought me to where I am today. And it's kind of crazy to me that I've been able to actually have a successful business, one that I'm, everyone defines success.
I was going to say,
for me, I consider myself successful because I never in a million years thought I was ever even going to make money from what I do. I really thought that in order to be a trainer or be a facilitator, I had to do volunteer work. That's what I did much for so much of my life. So I had given up years ago that I was ever going to make money from what I do. But I said, this is what I love to do. This is my purpose in life. And even if, I don't know, I'm sleeping under a shack somewhere under a bridge, I know I'm going to keep doing it because this was important. So the fact that I have made money, have been able to afford a house, like a roof over my head.
Yeah.
That I all of those for me is a success because I never thought that I'd ever be able to do that.
Exactly. Amazing.
And yeah, I'm just still learning every day, moving forward and trying to make an impact. I think the last thing I'll say on that is sticking to my values has also been really important, because I didn't want to ever kind of be a sellout and say like, oh yeah, now that I've gone corporate and it's all about money. For me, it's really important that, the reason why I do what I'm doing is because I want to make an impact and make a change. And so I've been really mindful and intentional about still working with great corporate companies who, like we can charge more, but really making sure that I do still pro bono workshops for nonprofit organizations that have causes I really believe in, or I've made a lot of great connections with UN agencies, and done a lot of work across the world for marginalized groups that often don't get these kind of training tools or skills or experiences. So that's really important to me. And I feel like as long as I'm still making sure that it feels balanced in my mind, then I can move forward feeling confident about what I've done. Yeah.
I love that. And I could hear it really clearly through our conversation today, your values and how they are it sounds like very much a backbone to your decision making, to the choices that you make. They were coming through very, very loud and clear to me. Okay, so the final bit of our podcast is always the quick fire questions. So I've got 4 questions for you, Romy.
Okay. Hit me.
Okay, I love that. Okay, what advice would you give to someone starting out as a facilitator?
I'd say, actually last night, just one of my old students said to me, I want to know how you do what you do. So what advice do you have? So what I told him, and what I'll tell you is, 1, keep learning and growing. Like, I think go to as many different things as you can to learn from others and see how you can then put your own unique spin on it. When it comes to the business piece, I'm like, don't underestimate the power of social media. Share widely what you're learning, and you never know, you may be a LinkedIn top voice. You never know where it goes.
Love it. Okay, who do you follow in social media land that you think others should know about or follow too?
Oh, in the facilitation space?
In any space.
Wow. Good question. So many. I have a problem. LinkedIn is always telling me I've maxed out people, that it's like, I want them to be the top, I want to get every notification from them. So let me think. I mean, obviously I think it goes without saying, I'm a huge fan of Brené Brown. I just think no matter what kind of area you're working in, her approach to leadership and heart-centered approach for me is life-changing. I'd say in terms of people in our space, I am a huge fan of Anna Maria, who Anna Maria Dorgo.
Yeah.
She's all about community space and has been so great at like sharing so widely resources. Lately, I've gotten really into behavior change. And so I really am trying to learn more tools and techniques of how to apply behavior change. And Robert Meza, he's someone who posts really great tools and resources on behavior change on LinkedIn as well.
Fabulous. Thank you. I love that. What book do you recommend to people, or if not a book, a podcast?
Oof, about anything?
Or again, anything, yeah. I mean, if you can do just facilitation, you're very welcome, but...
So hard. Okay, I'm obsessed with books. Books are actually the one thing I said I when we make the official move, I don't care about any materials, just the books.
The books have to come.
The books are the majority of my luggage and suitcases. I'd say, okay, cliche, but totally important, right? Psychological safety, we know, is the foundation for learning. So Fearless Organization by Amy Edmondson, huge. I'd also say in terms of experiential learning, one of the books that I love is How We Learn is How We Live, from David Kolb and Kay Peterson. Really great way to show that experiential learning is not just about, in learning context, but really about how our preferences as learners in the cycle affects how we communicate, make decisions, plan our time, even travel in our real life. And so really, really fascinating to read that book too.
I love that. And finally, how have you invested in yourself or your business to support you in moving forward?
I definitely, again, purchase a ton of books. I purchase a ton of other courses. I'm always learning and growing. I think I'll never stop. And investing in myself, I think even more so than where I put my money is I'm really learning, like I said, how do I invest in positive, self-compassionate conversations to myself? Because I think one of the scariest things about starting your own business, and someone once said, was like the first sale you make is the sale you make to yourself. And again, when I came from a nonprofit space, it's so easy to go in this negative, like, am I worthy? Is this okay? Can I actually charge for this? Right? All those pieces. And really investing in myself by telling myself, yes, you know what you're doing. You're good at this. Look at the impact. Keep going. And speaking to myself like my own best friend and not an enemy.
Love it. Thank you for being here today, Romy. I really, really enjoyed this conversation. How do people find you? Like, where can they go to connect with you?
Definitely on LinkedIn. I'm still working on my website, but LinkedIn is definitely the place. I post there. I try to post there almost every day, and really sharing as many resources. So feel free to connect there. Yeah, that's usually the best place.
Good. And it's Romy Alexandra, and we'll also put a link in the show notes for people to find you. Thank you. I really appreciate that conversation.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you having me on today.
My pleasure. That was a great conversation. What did you think? Romy's energy just totally inspires me. I was fascinated that she has traveled so much, 80 countries out of 195, 197, and that she's made it work, that she's been able to live in multiple countries, travel to multiple places, and still she seems so grounded and so rounded and down to earth. I think the other thing that really stood out for me in the conversation is her mentality of abundance, the value that she has of sharing and giving so generously, and that by giving and sharing, the karma comes around, that things come back to her. So I hope that by listening to today's podcast, you have got some ideas and some inspiration from Romy and the conversation that I had with her. Thank you for being here. This is an experiment doing an outro. So any thoughts, any feedback, you know where I am. Feel free to drop us a line. See you again in a couple of weeks.